Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today we're going to be talking about Sesame being added to the major allergen list. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys I'm going to be in Edison, New Jersey this year on December 2nd and 3rd of 2025. I'm going to be a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo. I'll be giving 2 classes there. Once those classes are over, I'm going to be out on the main expo floor in my National Street Food Vendors Association booth, where you guys can come and join me, share your success stories, ask any questions you have about getting started in the food truck business, or just hang out with us and have a great time. Again, in Edison, New Jersey, December 2nd and 3rd of 2025. Go to FTOexpo.com, place your order for the tickets today, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. Now let's talk about Sesame being added to the major allergen list and what that means to you as a food truck owner. And if you don't sell sesame or don't use sesame, you might be surprised where you're going to find it. So what does that mean that it's been added to the allergen list? It means most likely you're going to have to note anything on your menu that would contain sesame to alert people that are allergic to sesame that that product has sesame in it. Now you may have a guest come up and ask your cashier, do y'all sell anything that has sesame in it? And you need to have trained your cashier on how they should respond, and if there is something that contains sesame, as well as what to do if someone says they have an allergy to sesame and you guys carry sesame on your food truck in some way, shape, or form. So here's some places that sesame could be hiding on your food truck and you're not even aware of it. The obvious one that we all know is a sesame seeded bun, like on a Big Mac. Back in the day when someone would come to our restaurants and we sold sesame seeded buns, they would say, I need a bun with no sesame seeds. Most of the people just didn't like the texture of sesame, didn't like how it would get in their teeth and that type of thing. But if they were allergic to it, we had no alternative. One of the companies that I worked for only carried 2 buns. It was a 4-inch and a 5-inch bun, and both of them had sesame seeds on the top. One of the practice back then was to say, okay, no problem, we'll put it on bottoms. And for somebody that only cared about the texture of sesame seed, that would work. But somebody that was allergic, that wouldn't work, because obviously there's cross-contamination between the crown of the bun and the heel or the bottom of the bun. So as an allergy, you couldn't serve that particular bun. So again, buns are the obvious ones, but it's also in breads or as a topping to breads, like artisan seeds could actually have sesame seeds in it. Bagels, for instance, could have sesame in them. Non-bread pita breads, even certain wraps could be made with sesame or sesame oil or even sesame seeds. And you may not even be aware of it unless you read the ingredient list. How about sauces and dressings? Anything Asian style could potentially have sesame oil or sesame seeds in it. Chili oil, tahini, house special blends, even some slaws could have sesame oil or sesame seeds. Spice mixes, like everything bagel, check the ingredient list. Shawarma, za'atar, generic burger seasonings may have ground up sesame seeds or sesame oil in it. Proteins and patties. A pre-seasoned beef patty could be pre-seasoned with sesame seeds or sesame oil. Falafel mix. How about veggie patties? And then, of course, oils. Obviously, there's sesame oil, but chili crisp could be made with sesame seed oil. Toppings, like we go on a salad. Crunchy salad toppers, for example, may have sesames mixed in with it, toasted sesame seed. And then seed blends obviously could have sesame seeds mixed in with the other seed. And you got the age-old one that we all hate, a supplier substitution. The bakery's substitute bread. They're giving you a 5-inch roll, but they're sending you rolls that have sesame seeds on them. And they're sending you a 5-inch roll to replace your 5-inch roll that doesn't have sesame seeds, but the one that they send has sesame seeds on it. Or you might have a co-packer that just changes a recipe. Big companies like Burger King and Wendy's and those places don't have to worry about a packer changing the recipe. For the big companies, is going to follow the exact recipe. They won't do a substitution. We're small compared to Burger King and Wendy's. So they may change a recipe without ever even telling us. And certainly they may reformulate the product and say it's new and improved, and they've added something like sesame. So you got to be aware of those changes to your products. And if a label just says something generic like natural flavors or spices, you might want to ask what goes into those natural flavors or spices. Because remember, sesame has just been added, so it could be a problem. Here's something else to think about on your food truck. If you do carry something that has sesame in it, for example, it's coated with sesames, and you're going to do falafel and fries, and you deep fry the falafel, well, you've contaminated the shortening. So now you can't serve anything out of it if somebody says, hey, I've got an allergy to sesames, because you've been cooking things in the oil that has sesame in it. So now the oil could potentially cross-contaminate something like French fries that have no sesame on it anywhere, but when you fry it in that oil, it could make somebody sick who has that allergy. So you got to be aware of that potential cross-contamination. How about if you use a bun toaster or a griddle and the bun has sesame on it? Somebody says, hey, I'm allergic to sesame. No problem. We'll cook your burger. But if you're cooking the burger on the same place where you toast sesame-seeded buns, you're potentially cross-contaminating that piece of meat. Cutting boards or knives. Somebody wants their sesame-seeded bun cut in half. No problem. But if you don't take that knife and immediately go wash it, the next person that has ordered a burger that doesn't have a sesame seed on it, and then you pass the knife through it to cut theirs in half, you just cross-contaminated and given them an allergic reaction when they didn't need to have one. Sauces and squeeze bottles. This one happens by incidental touch. So you have a squeeze bottle that has an oil in it that you know has sesame in it, but it's going to add a whole bunch of flavors, so you only put it on certain products. If it's got sesame seeds in it, then you probably have cut the nozzle to where it has a wide bead, and you got to shake it, then you tip it up and start putting that beautiful zigzag pattern on that product. Turn the bottle upright, send it out. But as you turn it upright, a little bit of sesame seed just drips down the edge of the nozzle, and you just casually touch it even with your gloved hand. If you didn't notice it, you're going to contaminate the next product with that gloved hand, having touched something that held sesame. Even though you think you had a barrier there, it does happen. But then also people will wipe stuff with towels, and they don't immediately put the towel in sanitized water. So they wipe up a spill with the sesame oil. Oh, no problem. And then 10 minutes later, they take that and wipe somewhere else, and they've cross-contaminated that area. So you got to be very mindful now with sesame, something you may not have been used to. So what you want to do, just to make sure that you're not going to contaminate anybody or anything, go through all of your products. Look at the ingredient list, and you're going to be looking for every product on your food truck. It's not only just your spice rack. You want to look at the breads, how are they made, the sauces, any dressings that you have. And then, of course, look at spice mixes and anything that's pre-mixed. Does it have sesame in it? Photograph the label so you just have it for your record. And then ask the purveyor of those products for the current specs if it has something that's ambiguous. So, for example, you're looking at a pre-mix of something and it says seasonings. Oh, we need to know what those seasonings are. Or if it says spices, we need to know what those spices are. And they should tell you. You want to build a one-page allergen matrix. And this is a good idea to have whether you think you have sesame on the truck or not. Anything that's on your food truck needs to be identified for your cashiers for potential allergens. Should identify it on your menu, so as people read it, they can go, oh, well, I can't order that. And it's just a common courtesy. You don't have to do anything special, just note on your menu. This product may contain. So those allergens you got to be concerned with would be sesame, that's the new one, but also wheat, dairy, eggs, soy, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. And then on that matrix that you're designing, so each row would have the menu item, and then each column would have those potential allergens that I just listed off. So then by that product, you would put a C for contains that allergen, so that way the staff knows. May, so you put an M, so it's a maybe contains, and that would be something that you're going to have to identify. And a maybe would be that you're adding the sesame to it. So for example, you're doing an Asian burger, and what makes it Asian is this awesome sauce that you put on it that contains sesame. So that would be a may contain. And then an X for it is a cross-contamination risk. So that sauce, for example, is a cross-contamination risk. You want to print that up, put it near the cashier where they can refer to it if need be when they get asked those questions, so they're not making up answers. And they're not having to say, hey, boss, we need you to explain to this customer what's in this dressing. You don't want to have that back and forth conversation. You just want the cashier to be able to handle it. So empower them with information. So once you got that matrix set up, then you got to decide on other policies. If you do sell something, again, deep fried, for example, that has the sesames on it, do you have one fryer or two? If you have two fryers, then you need to denote one of those fryers is sesame only, and anything that has sesame you can cook in it. We did that at Burger King with fish. We had one fryer that was designated fish only, and that was the only fryer that you could cook fish in. You could cook everything else other than French fries in that particular fryer. So chicken, the chicken strips, the chicken sandwich, anything that was deep fried could go in that fryer, but that was the only one that could also cook fish. So what that meant was when somebody says, hey, I've got a fish allergy and I know you guys may cook chicken in that fish fryer, can you make sure that my chicken is only cooked in the other fryer? And you would cook it in that third fryer. So if you do have multiple fryers and one of them is going to be contaminated with an allergen, it needs to be marked and the staff needs to know that. If you have breads or buns that have sesame ingredients added or any of the allergens added, you want to make sure that you have a procedure in place to handle how those could potentially cross-contaminate other things that don't have those allergens in them. You want to go ahead and buy some color-coded tools. Purple is the industry standard for an allergen. So you should have a purple knife to cut things in half, so that way you know as soon as that knife is used, it's only used for those allergen specific products and it needs to be cleaned. Same with the cutting board, the same with tongs. And if you have a dressing that you have a non-allergy version, so again you have a sesame seeded dressing and then you make a version that has no sesame seeds for the people that have a sesame allergen, then that goes in a purple bottle and of course labeled with what it is. We have that on our food truck, or we used to have that when we sold shrimp. We had a different color tong for the shrimp than we had for anything else to be used. So that way we always knew this is the shrimp tongs. If possible, you want to create a sesame safe make flow. So if somebody says, I'm allergic to sesame seeds, if you can create a way for you to make sure the food is produced without cross-contamination, then do so. And then what does that procedure look like to make sure that the customer is not going to have to worry about having an incidental touch from sesame seeds? But if you can't do it and feel reasonably safe that they will not be cross-contaminated, then you also want to make that policy available to your employees so they can pass it on to the guest. When a guest says, hey, if you're going to make that product, I need it to be no sesame seeds. And the cashier should already know that they can or cannot do that. It's okay for you to tell somebody no because you're trying to protect them. Safety is always the very first thing you worry about. Safety and then courtesy. So when the guest says, hey, I need this to be made with no sesame, and you can't guarantee that it won't have cross-contamination, just tell them no. I apologize. I can't do that. I can't guarantee your safety, so we're not going to be able to fulfill your order. And just leave it at that. Guest safety, employee safety is top priority. Safety first, then courtesy, then the show, and then capacity. So just be upfront with them. If you can't do it, you can't do it. You would much rather them go somewhere else and eat a good meal and be thankful that you didn't make them sick with an allergen that you couldn't prevent cross-contamination. So create that script for your cashier, create that matrix so the cashier has something to refer to, and then make sure your team is fully trained on how to handle something if you are able to produce it in a non-allergenic way. And make sure they understand this is how it has to happen if a guest says no sesame and you're able to produce it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding everything helpful that we do, please consider subscribing. If you love what we do, show some support. There's a link in the description to make that happen. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.